This is an open letter for General McMaster's. Hello, sir. Hope everything is fine. I understand that when I was 12, you graduated from the military academy on somewhere on Earth. So I understand. I'm fully aware of where you stand and where I stand, and nobody in the middle of nowhere. So, with all the respect in the world, sir, I saw your interview with Mr. Inskeep. I listened to it on NPR. You had an interview with Mr. Inskeep. It uh, it's not that I don't agree with you. I just some things are not clear to me. Of course, God forbid I disagree with you, but it's not that. It's just that some things are not clear to me. So I thought maybe I uh, see if I can see her better, see your point of view on the matter. So here's the thing. With regards to Afghanistan, your idea, the way you explained to Mr. Inskip, is that no, the withdrawal should not have happened, and we should have been there, boots on the ground, keep the fucking place in order, because these monkeys can't manage their own business. That was the gist of it. I'm sorry you didn't say it like that, but that was the gist that I got. Again, English is my second language, so maybe I got the wrong gist. This is the gist I got, and it's sort of like the idea of holding down the fort until we can make them into something that we can recognize as civility, or we can recognize as normal. The whole idea that is today, the Afghanistan women, why aren't Afghanistan women in miniskirts going to universities? That's the whole idea. It starts from there. Always starts from uh, good intentions. Why aren't Afghan women allowed to wear miniskirts and go to universities? First, let's make sure that what you claim that this is an ideal, let's make sure it is an ideal. First of all, let's see, we don't want to go there. That has it worked for you in terms of social cohesion? Has letting the woman free, has it helped or hurt your social cohesion with regards to order, with regards to civility, with regards to uh, you know more calmness in the society? You have turned one income used to be enough, now two incomes is necessary just to keep up with the bills in a family, and many of these women have become single because freedom. so so first of all, it hasn't worked for you, but I don't want to go there. I just don't want to go there. What I want to go is that it seems neither you nor Mr. Inskeep, but it seems Mr. Inskeep, being a desk jockey, he's not, he doesn't want to, ask tough questions or bring up tough matters with his guests, because he wants them get back, and he wants to keep his reputation, and he wants the guests back. So he's not going to ask tough questions. But here's a tough question, sir. First of all, your system hasn't worked for you. What you advocate for, freedom and education and college for everyone. Not education, but college for everyone. Don't educate them. Anyway, college for everyone and miniskirts for everyone and everyone should, Mickey Mouse for everyone. First of all, it hasn't worked out for you. Second of all, here's something, thank God for the internet. Thank God for the US military who created the internet, that now we can say thank God for the internet. You go on in YouTube, which is free. I'm sure you have internet connection as the ex-head of NSA. I'm probably sure you have a special internet connection. So you're in your special internet connection, you go on YouTube and right now type, the date and type in, Afghanistan breakfast in Kabul or breakfast in Afghanistan on YouTube. Something very, not very controversial. It's a many unspoken videos of many breakfast scenes in the downtown Kabul, and you go watch and see the breakfast scene in downtown Kabul in such and such a date, like yesterday. You see that. I can see that. I'm sure you can see that with your special internet connection, and I'm sure Mr. Inskip can see that too. Your lunch in Afghanistan, and watch a bunch of videos with regards to the lunch scene in downtown Kabul. You very soon you figure out that with regards to manners, with regards to hygiene, with regards to everyday common things that we, as a people living in a very specific part of the world, things we consider as normal, a normal hygiene, a normal order, a normal this, a normal that, none of it is taking place in that scene that you're watching from yesterday in Kabul. No order, no hygiene, nothing. In the middle of basically showing you that in a way that we understand. We living in a specific part of the world that is not there, on the other side of the planet. But you see their daily life there. But you're telling me in that middle of the shit show that you're watching on the screen, you're saying that, you see, the problem with that, there are no women in miniskirts walking around going to college. There are no women in miniskirts walking and going to college. In the middle of the shit show, I don't want to walk down that street. You walk down that street, you gotta hold your, cup your ass, or else someone is gonna try to screw you right in the middle of daylight. That's that kind of environment, and you guys are sitting there and saying, you and Mr. Inskeep, just going back and forth in a very friendly banter of people in their ivory tower about those, shit show going over there, and you don't see the shit show, but you insist that, yeah, if we were there, we could have enforced women to go to college and go around in miniskirts in the middle of this shit show. Sir, the society moves together, or the society doesn't move at all. If you have to enforce a particular way of being onto a society, that means that way of being is not indigenous. That means the people who are living there in that way, it's not that their treatment of women is 18th century. No, their life is 18th century. Thanks to many times that you invaded to help them, you Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons, and those who follow to implement Anglo-Saxon colonialist ideas, have tried to rip a new one for Afghanistan once every at least 75 years. At least once every 100 years, the Anglo-Saxons have decided to rip a new one for the people of Afghanistan. They had some ideas about how they should bring order to that shit show. There go you know, the graveyard of the empires. They are like that. So the idea that on the surface, the facade, that you're saying that no, we have to go bring civility are normal over there. Are they normal in other ways, do you think? Is their hygiene normal? Is their superstition normal? Is their streets normal? Are they paved? Are they mud all over the place? Are they still carrying, you know, goods and services with animals around? Are they living in 18th century? Okay, yes. They're about maybe 19th century, early 19th century, mixed in with cell phone. It's a shit show. But the point is this, that everything will move together. If you don't disturb the system follows its own evolutionary path. And eventually, when their hygiene becomes 21st century, who knows when that's going to happen, but it will happen. You don't have to force it down their throat. You're normal. You don't have to force your normal down their throat so you can recognize them as normal. No, they're normal in their environment, because everything else about their life today resembles that of 18th century. So they're treating their women as you used to treat them in 18th century, as somewhat properties. If they look like 18th century, they have culture that resembles that of 18th century. Fuck, the Saudi Arabians live in every way, in every other manner. Are living in 21st century, except the way they treat their women. If anything, Saudi Arabia is a contrast. That that is an because it's an ally. It has been allowed to remain a very contrast of really technologically living in 21st century, but culturally 18th century. Women under lockdown, not just cover, just lockdown. But they were allies, so who cares? Here's the thing, sir. I don't believe you go in there to help the women. You want to go in there to help the women. When I say you, I don't mean this is a general use, sir. No disrespect to your person. When the Anglo-Saxon want to go in, they want to go in to get some influence on the ground. It's not boots on the ground, it's influence on the ground. Let's be frank. You go in to get some influence on the ground. Now, whatever you have to call it, we are going there to free their women. We're going there to free Afghan women from Afghan men. You're going there to free their women from their men. Sir, a society moves together. That those men who enact those laws, they also have wives and mistresses, and everybody knows about that. Eventually, when the time is right, their own wives and their own mistresses and their own daughters are gonna stick their thumb up his ass and force him to change those laws when the time is right. When the time is right, those who enacted these laws, their own mothers and daughters are going to force them to change it. Now, whether it takes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, but they will change it on their own. It doesn't need your special sauce to change. The US military doesn't need to bring a special sauce to catalyze this transfer. The culture doesn't change that fast. You can't force culture down people's throat. Move their history forward with the force of our bayonet. No, you don't touch it. Here's the good, old adage of look but don't touch. Because if you break it, you own it. These two always, I like to go into stores and look at stuff. These two signs are always there. Either look but don't touch, and you at the near cashier you see another sign that you break it, you bought it. This is a very important adage that should, whatever the slogan of Pentagon is, it should change to this. It's the wrong slogan. Slogan of Pentagon is should be either look but don't touch. Underneath it, in the footnote, because if you break it, you bought it. Look but don't touch. The system evolves on its own. Doesn't need your special sauce. Nothing about their daily life is a 21st century, but you under the facade. That's the crazy part, that Mr. Inskip cannot, ask the appropriate question, because then the facade will come off. The facade is, this is the facade that we're going to freedom, free Afghan woman from Afghan man. Whenever Afghan man understands anything about hygiene, maybe Afghan woman will find a way to a school. But you have to give it time, and you have to let the system be on its own, and not fund another group of shitheads because they're just serve your purposes better. And then, let's fund the Mujahideen to fight the order that the Soviets are trying to bring, just because, hey, my enemy's enemy is my friend. These crazy theorems were executed in Iraq and Afghanistan, Libya. This sort of like you white people on behalf of Anglos going in on behalf of the Anglo-Saxon, looking at the natives and telling the natives, why aren't you all speaking like me? Why aren't you acting like me? Why isn't your governance like my governance? Why isn't, your music like my music? Why aren't your women wearing the same clothes that my women are wearing? If your women are not wearing the same clothes that we allow our women to wear now, you must be backwards, and you must be doing something wrong, and it's uncivilized. Any of the women that are uncomfortable, you allow them to leave Afghanistan, and you allow them to immigrate wherever you want them to immigrate, whoever wants to. But you don't do that. You lock up the country, but you keep pointing at it that why aren't you looking like us? No, open up their country, allow anybody who wants to immigrate to your freedom, allow them come out, and whoever wants to remain. If that's the objective. But they don't need to be freed from themselves. But the reality is, this is all the facade. You know it, and hopefully you know it. I don't want to say hopefully you know it, because if you don't know it, then unfortunately, I'm talking about the people in the back of the class. If you don't know it, that's very unfortunate, because this is what's going on. This is the facade, that we are going there to bring our values to them. Although nothing else in their daily life looks like our daily life, with regards to hygiene and superstition, and none of their life looks like ours, but then in this matter they should look like ours. Their women should be as free as our women. Again, please watch a couple of these videos about lunch and breakfast in Afghanistan, and tell me you can see a girl wearing a miniskirt going to college in the middle of that shit show, where I would be scared walking down the fucking street. It's a shit show. Why aren't there women free? Because it's a shit show. You see that? A whole fucking platoon can go missing and nobody would notice. It's because it's a shit show. but any kind of interference from outside is not going to fix the shit show. It's going to make it worse. They have a shit show, so they have to have the kind of laws that can contain a shit show. I have another video, with all due respect, sir, Mr. McMaster. I have another video, please, if you don't mind my intrusion, if you don't mind my suggestion. I have another video called, I've named it Human Rights Aboard Cruise Ships and Pirate Ships. In a pirate ship, you have to have the kind of laws, set of laws, rules, regulations, whatever you want to call them, to make the shit show run. If you're in a cruise ship, you can have, certain laws that is adequate to run a cruise ship. You don't need draconian laws to run a cruise ship. In a pirate ship, you do need the draconian laws, because slap on the hand is not going to cut it. The guy can come out with his wife and daughter, and in miniskirts, and by lunch his daughter is going to be lost, just lost. It's not that kind of relaxed society. Look at those videos and tell me that we can go there, grab a couple of boys from Kansas. We can go over there with a couple of boys from Kansas, and we're going to make it better. Bring them our values. Better means our values. Although nothing else in their daily life resembles us, but their women and their rights should resemble our women and their rights. Salute to the sane society. Again, this is a very important adage, that look but don't touch. You want to look, you want to send in your students, you want to send in your tourists, you want to send in your businessmen for commerce. Whatever you want to do in that sense is okay. Don't touch. Whatever structure it has, that structure has been able to hold the shit together. Please don't fund the opposition. Don't think that they should somehow look like you. Don't sell this facade. We all know it's a facade, because anybody with any kind of intelligence knows that that kind of freedom cannot be given to women in Afghanistan, because that's the shit show they're living in. Lunch in Kabul. Scenes from the lunchtime in Kabul. That's the kind of shit show they're living in. So that's the facade. So what's underneath? Is it, this whole business of the top brass going into defense industry, and high-ranking brass going into basically becoming part of the board. I don't know what part of the boards means. They meet like 4 times a year and collect a paycheck. I'm not sure if being part of the board is any kind of real work involved. But even if it was real work involved, it's conflict of interest. I don't understand how can Mr. Inskeep not ask what is this most important question of all. Don't you see, isn't clear there's a conflict of interest when there is a revolving door between the government, top brass of the government, and cushy jobs at the higher levels of industry that was related is related to that part of the government that deals with those industries. I mean, this whole idea that we should go over there and with force, which comes from delivered by Raytheon, this force that we have that is delivered by, for example, Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, and Boeing is no longer in the business of space, obviously from their thing getting stuck in space, and they're no longer in the business of aviation because apparently none of it is as profitable as being in the defense business. And defense business is basically us going on behalf of the Anglo-Saxons, trying to force our way of life down the natives' throat, supposedly because it's good for them. Living by our values is better for them, so we're gonna go shove it down their throat. Sir, you had the same values they're showing right now. You have the same value system 200 years ago. Well, in every other sense, they're living 200 years ago. You putting down boots on the ground, trying to force them 200 years, force their culture 200 years into the future. How would you have felt? Imagine, here's Mr. General McMaster. Salute. Imagine somebody from planet X coming and putting boots on the ground in Uncle Sam's land and trying to tell you that no, the way you're running the government is wrong. We run our government better. We are here with boots on the ground to show you how this government thing is done. We are from planet X and we are here to show you how this government thing is done. Wouldn't you feel a little upset? It's like, well, maybe your form of government, people from planet X, maybe your form of government and the way you treat your other sex, the two sexes treat each other, and how your cultures and norms, maybe we as, people of Uncle Sam, not me, but people of Uncle Sam, we will get there when we get there. We don't need your military boots on the ground to force us into forming a certain form of government that you recognize, having certain social norms that you recognize as normal, but we, at this point in time in space, we don't recognize as a normal. So boots on the ground from planet X is not going to help in forcing you into becoming some form of your future self. Boots on the ground is not going to help. Cultural norms, economic norms, hygiene norms take some time. They have to evolve on their own. Hygiene norms. Forget about everything else. The hygiene norms evolves overnight. If this is good enough for him right now, then that's good enough. You can't bring your hygiene norm from your health department of Health and Human Services and bring those hygiene norms to try to implement those hygiene norms in the streets of Kabul. Kabul! You can't enforce your hygiene norms to other people. Imagine going in the middle of Amazon and trying to enforce your hygiene norms to a tribe which is still untouched in the middle of Amazon. To the sane society. No, you cannot implement your human rights norms, your female rights norms you can't take those laws and those norms from your place of the world, take it to the middle of Amazon rainforest and try to tell the locals how they should treat their women. it's everything is relative. You know, you're not that far ahead from the Afghans, and Afghans are not that far ahead from the untouched tribes in Amazon. But you nowhere has it been shown that any kind of force can, push anything forwards. And eventually we all do know that the women and children of these rulers, wherever the shithole you feel it's not keeping up with your norms, for example with regards to women's rights, you recognize that these in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, maybe 2 generations, 3 generations, 4 generations, the children of these rulers are going to force these rulers to change the laws so they can live a little better in what we regard as better. In no way or form you can force this business down the natives' throats, because it's just the same way you can't force them hygiene codes down their throats. Hygiene codes that is normal in your society down the throat of people living in Kabul. It's just unnecessary use of force. And there we go, Raytheon, unnecessary use of force, but it's profitable for a very few select very important people. Apparently, because it doesn't make any kind of logical sense that you going in does anything good for the natives. Never done. From Vietnam to Cambodia, has you going in with force ever helped any of the natives? It hasn't. I'm sorry. I know you like to say that now they're free. No, people of Libya are free. They're freely shooting at each other. We all know that there's no freedom. If you want to live in a society, you have to live by certain rules and regulations, and that's more stupid the society, the harsher has to be the rules and regulations in order to keep these harsh people in line. Draconian environments demands draconian laws and regulations and orders, and it will change in time at their own speed. But they have to be left alone, and you getting involved, Anglo-Saxons getting involved and bombing them and using their latest missiles on them is not going to help them. Never does. So what is happening? Boeing and everybody else, Raytheon and this and that, and they're all perpetuating this myth that the use of force is good from outside is good for the natives, because enforcing our values that is from 200 years in the future for them, our values should be executed right now in those backward areas on the planet. If they don't execute our norms right now, they're backwards and they deserve to be at the wrong end of our bayonet. Sir, please, it would be a good idea. Just add it to the Pentagon insignia or NSA insignia. Look but don't touch. Let the natives evolve at their own pace. Don't try to sell a war or continued occupation of the natives under the banner that is good for them. It's the right thing to do. Well, another right thing to do is the situation with Israel. That's the right thing to do. Why? Because the settlers are white, because they share the same book, the front portion and the back portion, we have the same book, so they're right because we are the same. you because you identify complexion wise and culturally with the settlers who are taking lands from the natives, and the whole thing has come out about how these settlers from Europe are taking lands from the natives in Asia, and it has your stamp of approval, and not only your stamp of approval, but your continuous free military support, forwarding of military hardware. And you don't consider this as being bad for the natives? They just smoked 40,000 of the natives. That's like to a 400 to 1 ratio. It's like the Palestinian killed about 1,000 Israelis, and Israeli killed about 40,000 Palestinians recently. So that's 400 to 1 ratio. We kill 400 of you if you kill any one of us. That's the same kind of math that was used to clear North America of the Redskins. That's the same kind of math that was used. If you kill one of us, settlers from Europe, we will kill 400 of the Redskins. They just repeated the mathematics in West Asia. For every one of us Europeans that have settled down in Asia, if you kill for every one of us, we will kill 400 of the brown-skinned natives. The same math was used in East Asia with regards to Vietnamese, and before that with regards to the Chinese. This is Anglo-Saxon mentality. The whole show is being run by Anglo-Saxon. I don't know if any of you listening are you personally are Anglo-Saxon or not. It doesn't matter. If you're following this playbook of colonialism under any other name, this colonialism has come under many different names. Was for a century the idea was, yeah, we have to go and civilize them, and for a century the idea was we have to go over there and bring them Christianity, and for a century the idea was we have to go over there and bring them our form of economy because it's better, because it's ours. And for a century, we have to go bring them freedom and democracy to the jungles of Amazon. That's the facade. But it's wrong to think that you can do anything. You can't improve anything with this regard to other peoples and cultures with force. Especially if they're natives living on their own land, trying to live on their own land, but they keep coming under continuous attack from the pinkskins. Whether pinkskins are from Anglo-Saxon tribe or other pinkskin tribes, it's been a couple of centuries, more than 4 or 5 centuries, that the Europeans have been, trying to go around the world and tell the natives how they should live under the facade of helping them, bring them the Christianity and civility and capitalism and democracy, under the facade of we are going to bring you something of ours that is very good. It has worked very well for us. Capitalism has brought us uneducated children, but very sophisticated weapons. It worked for us, so Raytheon is helping us to bring you, because it has worked for us. Raytheon is helping us to bring you what has worked for us very well. We have lots of uneducated children, but very good weapons. And frankly, I mean, when you see the results, that defense budget is 10 times education budget, and you're telling me that this system is so good that it should be implemented. It's our system, and it's so good that it should be implemented in Afghanistan too. We're going to go show them with our Raytheon weapons how it's done. And this is a good system. We got good shiny weapons, but uneducated children. Because our education budget is 1/10 of our defense budget. Our housing budget is 1/10 of our defense budget. Our health budget is 1/10 of our defense budget. But hey, no, frankly, sir, it would be much better for everyone that you do recognize that this is nonsense to think that anything can be done with regards to other people's cultures and way of beings by force. When it's time for them to move forward, to give their women more rights, to give their children more rights, when it's time for them to move forward, they will move forward. Their hygiene change norms changes, their health norm changes, their superstition superstitious beliefs and ideals changes. Eventually their form of religion will also soften up and change, and there's no need for guns and arrows under the facade of we're going to bring them something really good. This women's right has to come and be implemented here. Again, saving women, Afghan women from Afghan men. It's just not right, sir. It's the very bad ideas are being sold as always as good ideas. Very bad ideas are being sold as good ideas. It's and bad ideas are bad ideas because it benefits very few, and it's detrimental to many. This is how you know it's a bad idea. Any idea that benefits very few people but forces many to suffer, that's a bad idea. The whole war between Russia and Ukraine, that's all kinds of war under this guideline, that any idea that benefits very few and makes many suffer is a bad idea. This should be the criteria. Under this, all wars are unnecessary because it benefits very few who are in the business of sword making, and it costs many very much. But again, I understand that you have a lot of history and you have a lot of education. You're very worldly, and when I was 12, you graduated from the military academy. I understand all of that. But sir, this is simple. Just like you don't want to be invaded by people from planet X, and even if they have some good ideas, when your society is ready for it, your society will move on to those better ideas. But bayonets and boots on the ground is not going to help your society to move forward faster. In fact, they become even more resistance to moving forward. It's like the whole story behind, many of these Islamic countries in the Middle East is because you try to change them to your standards, overnight, and many of the native population have shown resistance on purpose because they don't want to move fast. So fuck, you're seeing resistance in moving social norms too fast. You're seeing resistance in Chattanooga. Forget about Kabul. People want societies evolve at the speed that they choose to evolve. Your rules from a central position change. You can't change their culture because you push the button in a basement in Pentagon. It just doesn't work that way. By force it does, but force costs money. Anything you have to enforce, you have to feed it. It's like calories. You have to print money to enforce your will upon others. You have to create wealth to enforce your will upon others. Well, here's the thing: being the world's reserve currency, it was a very was a very, I think the phrase is jolted position, or very well, very high position, mighty position, that a lot of good could have been done if Uncle Sam's managers were a little more realistic, holistic, cultured, well traveled. I mean, the whole upper echelon of the Bush dynasty or Bush presidencies were money men, not well traveled, not very in tune with the planet and how cultures evolve, and it was very businessman, economic motivated. The war was about economics and how much farther we can extend the walls of our tent, and they sold it under some kind of freedom business and democracy business. We all know it. But the natives are paying the price of the either, malice, ignorance, or just regular ignorance. Yeah, the locals suffer. It doesn't matter. The locals will suffer under your sanctions and embargoes and attacks, physically attack them to change the natives. And sell it as some kind of a good thing. And unfortunately, Mr. Inskeep is not, someone to risk his desk job by asking tough questions or question the whole basis of this perspective towards the world. That we are better. Not only we know we are better, but we also think they should become like us, not in 200 years, but today. That's only when we recognize them as normal. I mean, how self-centric you have to be that you think that you have reached the apex and everybody else has to be like you, become like you. But then at the same time, you don't recognize that reaching that position, it's an evolutionary path, and if left alone, all societies will follow that evolutionary path. Not recognizing that and trying to force it on the natives, force fast, rapid change, social evolutionary change. Forcing social evolutionary change in a rapid format to the native. And if it's gonna cost us a couple of million lives of the natives, so be it. Many millions of lives, so be it. Why? Because we have to all live under the Anglo-Saxons ideals, colonial concepts, jackboot. You're just ruining lives. Even your own soldiers, when they come back, they have so much issues. It's like many commit suicide. Who is winning? If what you do in it, very few win and many lose, both your own and the other side, then that must be a bad idea. Don't continue with it. If the winners are very few, and don't tell me Joe Sixpack, Joe Plumber had won something just because Uncle Sam took control of Baghdad, is controlling Baghdad. Don't tell me Joe Sixpack has won something. No, Joe Sixpack's life generation, it has been going downhill in terms of quality of life, education, health, and housing. In terms of quality of life, since the 1940s, 50s, till present, the quality of life for Joe Sixpack and his lineage has been going down. So don't tell me that boots on the ground in Baghdad was necessary to improve, to somehow that's a service to Joe Sixpack. And Joe Sixpack has to thank everybody, every other guy for his service. Joe Sixpack's life has been going downhill. I'm not sure who was provided a service for, but it certainly wasn't Joe Sixpack. He has no business in Baghdad. He will never have any business in Baghdad. He can't afford a pair of shoes. And that is like, 99% of the population of North America are all of that, of Joe Sixpack. 99% of the population have no business in Iraq. Their life doesn't improve by having boots on the ground in Baghdad or not having boots on the ground in Baghdad. The life that hasn't changed, they will never change because of it or for it. So 99% of the population are just like Joe Sixpack. So who has been this service been provided to? I can name a few. I mean, Raytheon and Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Halliburton and Shell and Exxon and many corporations with very few owners, with a lot who own a lot of the stocks of the corporation and therefore a lot of the profit of the corporation. They have won, and those are few people. They just got a bigger footprint. Now they can expand into Iraq. But 99% of the population could have used that money that was used to further the cause of Boeing, their defense section. Joe Sixpack has not benefited an iota. The natives haven't benefited either. Killed a bunch of the natives to try to tell them how they should treat their women. We killed their men to try to tell them how they should treat their women. In the process of teaching them how they should treat their women, we had to kill their men. Salute. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but this just. I think it's a bad idea. It's obvious that it's a bad idea. This whole idea of invading people and trying to teach them how to do things and trying to protect them. Come on, man. People don't need protection. They need one kind of government. Now, whatever you want to call it, Gaddafi or Gaddafi, he was keeping an order there. None now it's like 20 years Libya has no order. You can't bring order with force, sir, from outside. You just can't. But you keep going and, telling us, good stories about how good you are and you're doing it for the good reasons. No, no. There are no good reasons for a war, period. Especially those wars that are offensive. No good reason for an offensive war. If your boots are on somebody else's ground, that's offensive. If you're white and in southern hemisphere, that's obvious. If you're North American and you're in Europe or you're in Asia, that's offensive. The natives will get along most of the time, unless they're being funded from outside. The simple example of your interference, what didn't help the locals, was the last time, not this time, the last time you got involved in Afghanistan, and you tried to sell it as a one Charlie Wilson's war, as if Charlie Wilson by himself was the only person responsible, as if like it wasn't a national security decision to help the Mujahideen. But you helped bring disorder just because it served your purposes. Mujahideen's job was to fight the order that the Russians were trying to bring to one of the disorderly countries on their border, and you went in and you brought chaos by injecting weapons into them. And then the same became a reason for you to invade the other half of the Middle East. Some people in Afghanistan decided to do some nasty shit, and then that opened the door somehow to Iraq and Syria. Again, this is Anglo-Saxon policy. Colonialism with a different name. And anybody who goes along with it, knowingly or unknowingly, they're following Anglo-Saxon pink skin policy of, smash and grab. Resources, contracts, money-making opportunities. Fallujah was a smash and grab. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about everything I said, but it does somehow make sense to me. If there are any information that I don't have access to that justifies all these invasions of southern hemisphere by people from northern hemisphere, if there is some documents that shows that invasion of North America and South America by the European pinkskins was a good idea. Somewhere it says that it was a perfect idea. Somewhere it says that pinkskins going to Australia, then locking the door behind them and telling everybody else to stay out. This is pinkskin land, and just kill off the native and declare it pinkskin land. That was a good idea. Questionable, sir. Questionable. And Australia, the other day, I heard on Tucker Carlson that Australia has given more blood in World War One and World War Two on behalf of England, for England, on the wars that were somehow brought about by the British. Australians have lost more lives in those wars than the British have. Maybe I'm wrong on those statistics, but I heard this somewhere. But the idea is just Look, don't touch. Russia was not broken until you expanded NATO into in their backyard. They come right up to the border. NATO is unnecessary. They were doing business together. The Russians and the Europeans, they were doing business together. And since the markets are open, if the Europeans don't want to pay, the Chinese will pay. So Russia doesn't have any issue, doesn't have a monopoly in buying or selling oil or any other minerals. So that and the Europeans can compete in international markets to purchase any resources that they want. If the Russians don't sell somebody, they will buy from somebody else. But this whole idea of going to war with Russia over Ukraine, which has to become part of NATO because it's very important to us geopolitically. Well, it's very important to the Russians for exactly the same reason, geopolitically. But the problem is you're expanding NATO while Russia was happy with Ukraine remaining neutral. So the action was on your part. You're trying to expand the imperial tent with the help of Raytheon and Boeing and Northrop Grumman. And you sell it under different names, the democracy and freedom for women or freedom for men, and these are all good things. There's no question about it. Not with regards to democracy. Democracy can be improved on a lot, but with regards to human rights and women's rights, yeah, they're all good ideas. Although some of them haven't worked out for you either, but they're very good ideas. But every society has to evolve into it, evolve with it, evolve until it achieves that level. Whether that society is in Chattanooga or is in Kabul, it has to follow its own path at its own pace. It doesn't make any sense to justify a war. Nothing justifies wars. But then again, where would the British be without wars? A cold island in the middle of fucking Atlantic.